here's something weird. A conversation about game balance in League of Legends actually changed that game's esports scene forever. In 2016, pro players and team owners were mad that Riot Games kept changing their game at the worst possible time. And in their attempt to pressure Riot to rethink the way they patched their game around pro play, they ended up changing the business model of League esports forever. And the craziest part about that is that we are responsible for it. Sort of. Kind of.
No, no.
Maybe?
Hell no.
A little.
No.
2016 was a frustrating time for League pro players and team owners. It's not that the scene was stagnating. Far from it. It was actually growing faster than ever, but there weren't a lot of people outside of Riot who were seeing the benefits of that growth. See, League, at that point, was still a pretty risky venture. Sure, it was one of the biggest esports in the world, but it was a pretty uncertain proposition for a non-endemic investor looking to get into the space. Teams were still able to be relegated, and if you happened to put together a team that wasn't, say, good enough for the current meta, your investment went down the drain at the end of the season.
It's now the Nexus. It's the 3-0 for Echo Fox to hold on to their spot in 2017. Then we bid farewell to Energy Esports in the LCS.
And you didn't even have to put together a terrible team to be at risk. See, winning is popularity. And if you had a team that was good enough to stave off relegation, but not good enough to win most of their games, you weren't going to build up the kind of fan base that sponsors are looking for. Naturally, it was a hot topic going into the 2016 LCS Summer Finals. So in an interview with Team Solo Mid owner Andy Reginald Dinh, ex-pro Skara asked him about it.
Like, what's your personal opinion on these types of last-minute changes?
Wait. Can we get a zoom in on that mic flag? That's right. Skara was asking that question for theScore eSports, which, if I'm being intellectually honest, means nothing, doesn't matter, and has nothing to do with the rest of this story. But if I'm being petty, which I will be, it means that that seemingly innocuous question is responsible for the shitstorm that you're gonna hear about in the rest of this video. Back to the interview.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from a fan perspective, right, they have a lot of fun watching LCS and Worlds with new champions. And, you know, it just gets all crazy. You see a bunch of new champions. You see Darius and GP running around, like, just killing everyone. But, like, from an owner perspective and a player perspective, it's honestly really discouraging. In order to make, like, an example, I would probably say it's like, if you look at, like, the NBA, right, where they go into, like, the NBA playoffs, it would be essentially changing, like, the basketball's weight and changing it to, like, shooting a bowling ball instead of a basketball. And a lot of my players practice, like, 10 to 12 hours a day. And, you know, it's not fun practice either because they wake up at like 10, they do VOD review to 10 to 12, and then they scrim from 12 to like 9 p.m. and then they play solo queue. They're pretty much really invested into this, right? And all their hard work essentially goes away.
But Regi went a step further. He pointed out that the constant meta shifts make it really difficult for a non-endemic investor to field a team, particularly because they don't really understand the game.
From like a lower organization standpoint, like a lot of the investors are buying into esports because they don't understand how to navigate around and they don't understand what to do. It's a lot harder for them, so they're losing millions of dollars by putting money into something that they don't understand. And that's with any investment, right? If you don't understand a space and you put money into it, then you're just basically taking a gamble.
And if the game is constantly changing, with relegation as the punishment for getting the meta wrong, that gamble is just too risky. Needless to say, Riot didn't love getting called out like this by one of their more prominent team owners. See, Team Solo Mid is the most popular team in North America. And if Regi was railing on Riot, TSM fans were likely to follow. But Riot didn't respond with a carefully worded press release. In fact, they probably wouldn't have said anything and handled everything behind closed doors. However, Riot co-founder Marc Tryndamere Merrill seemed to take Regi's comments personally. In the original comment he posted to the League of Legends Reddit, Merrill wrote, "Love me some Regi, but if he's so concerned about the financial health of his players, maybe he should spend some more of the millions he has made/makes from League of Legends on paying them instead of investing in other esports where he is losing money." Merrill went on to criticize more of Regi's comments, including saying that team owners did have the means to pay players better, they were just holding out on them, and that patches were being designed to make the viewing experience more exciting, not to balance the game better for pro play. As you might expect, That didn't go over great. Even though Merrill edited his post to tone down the language, his glib, seemingly uninformed, and mostly unpopular comments spread across the League of Legends community like mimetic wildfire. And Regi was quick to respond. The day after Merrill's Reddit comments, he released a twitlonger in which he pretty thoroughly rebuked most of Merrill's points. In particular, he had this rather scathing response to Merrill's assertion that Regi shouldn't be spending the money he makes on League of Legends into other games. Most LCS teams lose money because stipends are stagnant, sponsorships for LCS operations are shrinking, and the cost of player salaries, content production, support staff, and housing costs are spiraling up. Regi pointed out that sponsorship activation opportunities were scarce, and that Riot's team stipends didn't even come close to covering the cost of operations for an LCS team. And while teams had fewer ways to make money than ever, player salaries were naturally going up as great players realized they could ask for more money from teams that wanted to win. And again, outside investors just weren't interested in a system that could see them lose everything to just one bad split. Tryndamere came back with a twitlonger of his own, effectively walking back a lot of his claims and agreeing with most of Regi's points. But the damage was done. Public opinion had been pulled out from under Riot, and the time was right to instigate change. Reginald made one more twitlonger post on August 24th, telling Merrill that a proposal from several NALCS team owners and players would be in his inbox that day, ending the post with a hashtag, LCS Forever. LCS Forever spread quickly too, with several NALCS team owners banding together under its banner. And it seemed like for the first time in a while, they were going to the negotiation table with some form of leverage over Riot. But fans wouldn't get to find out exactly what that meant for a while. It took until November for firm reporting to come out about Riot's negotiations with teams, when Slingshot eSports published a letter from teams to Riot detailing some of their demands. Among other things, the documents outlined some of the team owners' proposals and responses to Riot's proposals. And by April 2017, we at theScore eSports were reporting that Riot was getting ready to franchise for the 2018 season. Finally, in June, 10 months after Regi's initial interview with Scara, Riot announced franchising was coming to the NALCS, with no relegation, permanent spots for teams, and revenue sharing.
And we think this is great because for teams, this will enable them to make better investments and more investments into their squad, and should in theory help with competitive parity because it gives revenues up and down the table. And for pros, we think this is a big change because it gives them upside and benefit from the growth of the league.
In the end, Regi's comments very directly led to Riot implementing a franchise system that has only been healthy for the scene and has helped all of esports too. We saw franchising being discussed as a serious option for even more games leagues and more non-endemics putting their money into the scene. Unfortunately, it wasn't all roses and sunshine. EU got kinda screwed while NA flourished under franchising. In fact, Europe isn't getting franchising until 2019 after split of declining viewership, revenue, and players leaving for NA. But franchising did happen, and it was thanks, in part, to us.
Where do you get off?
Totally us, you guys. Definitely not that Riot was probably considering franchising beforehand, and that they only acted after a concerted effort from team owners and pressure from fans in order to make the scene better, and even then only after nearly a year of negotiations. It was definitely us. Mission accomplished. You're welcome.
Thanks for watching. If you want more great content just like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button.